Peace. Shalom. Chapter 25 of the Isis Thesis. Oh, that's not the Isis Thesis. That's the roll from Orion. Sorry, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Encourage the brother, please. You know what I mean? Energy is neither destroyed or created. It's only transformed. So transform some of that stuff over here to the brother. Appreciate it. Try Jesus, not me. 'Cause I throw hands, yeah. He who lacketh discrimination, whose mind is unsteady and whose heart is impure, never reacheth the goal, but is born again and again. But he who hath discrimination, whose mind is steady and whose heart is pure, reacheth the goal, and having reached it, is born no more. Catha, Upanishad. Lucia was anxious to get started. She patted John gently on the back, and he looked up and smiled at her. Watching him, I wondered if he trusted her, although I guess that really didn't matter to John because he had spent most of his life trusting people and institutions that had let him down. He had an agenda similar to Gerald Nerval's aspirations. John would suicide himself to find ultimate knowledge, even if he was scared shitless, rather. Stretching, he said, "What else, Lucia? What else do we need to know?" After pouring a cup of coffee, Lucia said, "When you arrive at the pole of the Earth's cell, you're going to experience a lot of ultraviolet radiation from the sun, which is going to have some interesting effects." As I remembered that Galileo had gone blind from staring at the sun, John leaned forward and said, "Such as?" "UV radiation," she said evenly. "It's caused by sun flares which send energetic protons to the polar cusp, causing flux transfer events that significantly increase the radiation there. On the cell level, this is damaging. So our host cell senses death by irradiation and sends out an SOS response. This cry for help brings 42 genes to aid and help repair the cell's UV damaged DNA so that replication can take place past the damaged DNA." All right, so you're saying that we won't have a problem taking over the cell's replication machinery and that we'll actually have an army of helpers, said John, smiling quizzically. Lucia watched John, knowing that she could never really describe to him what it would be like in the quantum world. "That's right," she said flippantly. "And along with your molecular army, you're going to get a long sword." Both Lucia and John began to laugh, but I did not see the humor in her remark. John was awake now, his mind sharpening. The Egyptian text described the monster serpent Apis. Is this snake going to be a problem? What snake is not a problem? I thought, remembering the one lodged in the shepherd's throat and mine, but Lucia had an answer for everything. The pyramid text state that Apis is a four-coiled serpent, which is a pretty good description of this protein that keeps 42 genes depressed in the host cell. Actually, the monster lacks a repressive protein, represses the right arm of the lambda genome. It stops the replication of certain genes that promote lysis. Lucia paused to finish her coffee with one long swallow, and then she continued. You could say that the protein or the monster snake Apophis is stuck in the lambda genome's throat. The genome is like a DNA tree, and Apophis is wrapped around it, preventing the function of certain genes. But this snake can be dislodged from the genes. What happens is that when single stranded DNA is present in the host cell due to lambda penetration and UV irradiation, the cell responds with an SOS response. REC-A protein and 42 genes are activated, and this gene cuts the LEX-A repressor protein. Well, cuts off the LEX-A repressor protein. Or, as the Egyptians would say, it slays the monster Apophis. At that moment, I felt relieved that we would not have to deal with this monster Apophis, and then suddenly I felt ridiculous because I was worried about fighting a stupid repressor protein. Lucia continued, in order to better understand SOS activity, let's go back in time to 300 BCE when Thuban was the pole star in the constellation Draco, which means dragon. When the text advised the newly deceased to go to the polar cusp guided by the pole star, the Egyptians understood that the genetic result of this movement to Draco would be the slaying of the dragon Draco or Apophis. It also works like this. The deceased arrives at the pole, merges with the sun god, and enters the Earth's cell, causing a break in its DNA. The SOS response of the cell goes off, and REC-A protein binds to the single strand DNA, inactivating the LEX-A repressor protein. From a mythic perspective, the deceased with his REC-A sword slays the dragon protein LEX-A Apophis and wins eternity because the cell goes into SOS. Actually, the dragon, the LEX-A repressor protein, catalyzes its own digestion in the face of the single-stranded DNA, REC-A filament, and the activation of the 42 genes. What you're saying is that just my presence in the whole cell is going to free up these 42 genes and slay the dragon protein, said John. Yes, she said. Now I want to talk to you about the environment of the cell. It's going to have protein folding structures or energy landscapes that look like mountains, valleys, waterways. Actually, you'll be navigating a funnel like landscape where different proteins appear like backbones, helices, and ribbons, structures that look like snakes and serpents. You'll see long protein chains fold into compact, stable structures. She paused. Remember that upon entry into the cell, you will pass through the 6 gates of the Lamporan. Then, before Osiris rises, there will be 7 more gates that you must cut through so Osiris can rise. 7 rooms, as in Poe's story. This is the 7 base pair integration and the excision pathway to the LAC-Z gene site. In other words, Osiris leaves by the same route he came in. I remember Prospero's horror and his destruction when he tried to unmask the hooded specter in the Red Chamber, and I stared at Lucia as if she were a messenger from the Red Death itself. But all John did was bow his head in the manner of Sir Galahad, sweep his arm to the right like a gallant knight, laugh and ask, "Any more dragons to slay, my lady?" "I think you'll be okay," responded Lucia seriously. "But you must remember that you may experience the afterlife as a terrifying dream state, and if this happens, it will get progressively worse until the final degradation, which is rebirth, according to the Tibetan Book of Death. If this happens, you must stay calm and clear-minded to be heroic." Lucia tried to smile when she said this, but she was unsuccessful, which really scared me. I cringed as a horrible howl ripped through my head. It was the beast crouched in its tower, getting ready for the fall. Then Lucia made one final comment. "When you arrive at the pole, you will meet a beautiful woman, hollowed in brilliant gold, feldspar, and turquoise, and she will travel with you as you ferry through the cell. This is Isis, the lactose nutrient medium for the new species. This brings us to an end of chapter 25 on the road to the road from Orion. We'll be back with 26 the next time we meet back up. But peace and shalom to all of you, and see you next time.